kitty. Look who's here. All our fans are out there.
I should probably just call this video more information on the Dragonfly than most people will ever care to get. And I'll tell you now that most of the information here was pulled from the Spidey Wiki, which is online, and it has numerous footnotes. I did not check all the footnotes, so the information I'm giving you, for the most part, came out of the Spidey Wiki the best way I could understand it. So with that said, let's get started on what I'm going to be doing here, and that's basically going over a little bit of the chronology of the development of the Dragonfly and the second generation Dragonfly, or Dragonfly 2. Now, this is what happens when I end up picking up a knife that I really like and use quite a bit. Like I said, on a couple occasions in videos, I tend to collect knives that I like, and usually if I like it, I use it. That's why I have a lot of large toothpicks. That's why I have a lot of scout knives. That's why I have a lot of Swiss Army knives, because I like those knives. Now, I do not have a lot of Spydercos, but as you can tell, I have a growing collection of Spyderco Dragonflies. I've got a pair of 3. So here's my pair of 3, and you see it's the Spy 27 steel somewhere there, yeah. CPM's SPI 27, I need to do that. CPM SPI 27 or SPY 27 steel, and I like it. I got used to the compression lock fairly quickly. I use the wire pocket clip for positioning my fingers, so when I drop the blade I can drop it easy enough and have a good grip on it, so I can work on it pretty well, and I can do the Spidey flick with it and everything else. So all of those needs that everyone has with Spydercos is met with this knife. Like I mentioned before, I'm thinking about also getting the Manix 2, I think. I like the size of this. I don't want to go any bigger or anything else, so I'm not getting a pair of 2 or anything like that. But I'm not as enamored with the pair of 3 as I am the Dragonfly. And I think the Dragonfly has a much more interesting history than the pair of 3, so this is probably the only pair of 3 I will get. I also have the Bird Meadowlark 2, another one that's a good size. I got it in stainless steel, so it's a little heavy. I'm wishing I would have got it in some other material. I probably won't. You see how well that drops? It drops really well. So I was pretty impressed with this knife, other than the weight. And also, I'm not crazy about this style of pocket clip. I like the wire clips better. That's really my big drawback on the birds, is the type of clip used, which is a very common clip that was, I think Spyderco came out with this clip first and was using it, and you see it repeated all over the place on all sorts of other knife brands these days. And then the other knife I have by Spyderco that is not a Dragonfly is my little clippit tool here. And this is one made in Japan using 8CR13 MOV. And I really like this one. I use it quite a bit and carry it quite a bit. And really like the scissors on it. There's a couple other versions of this, one of them with a bottle opener and one of them with a little saw blade. Not as interested in those. I like the scissors on this one. This is definitely, it's just a slip joint knife, so, you know, that's the way it works. And same with the scissors. And it's, I don't know, really happy with it. And so I've been very satisfied with just about every Dragonfly I bought. I'm sorry, with every Spyderco I bought. But I'm not looking at collecting all sorts of different Spydercos, and I do not feel the need to go out and buy the latest Spyderco or anything like that. See all those scratches on there? I definitely use this thing. In any case, I can't say the same when it came specifically to the Dragonfly. I really like the Dragonfly, and that's why I've started collecting other Dragonflies. And so what this is going to be is just a really quick summary of the Dragonfly knives I have so far, and a little bit about, and I'm going to try and put them in chronological order, not in the order that I picked them up, but in the order that they were made by Spyderco. And with that said, this is one of the last ones that was made by Spyderco, the one in the Zomei green. Now, the very first Spyderco that came out looked very similar to this one. This is not a first issue one, though. This is actually the second issue of a Spyderco. But the first one looked very similar to this. The way you can tell it apart is that it was actually a little bit smaller than this one, and instead of using Os 8 steel, as you see there's Spyderco Os 8 stainless. The very first ones that came out in 1994 and then 1995 came out with Gen 1 and then G2 steel. So those were the very first ones. They look very similar to this, only slightly smaller and a different kind of steel. This particular one, the numbers on them don't change, just the material that was being used changes. This particular one is also a C28BK, but this one did not show up on the scene until 2001 and was produced basically between 2001 and 2004. And the way I know that is because of the length of the blade and the fact that it is using the Os 8 steel. And then in 2004 something else happened to the knives, and you see it here. In 2004 the boye dent was introduced into the Spyderco Dragonfly. Now, for those not familiar with the boye dent, it was something that was designed by David Boye, who is a big-time nautical guy and makes his own knives, David Boye knives. And the purpose of the dent here is actually so that you can actually index your finger easier onto the back spring when the knife is open, so you can find it more easily so that you can drop the blade. And I tell you what, having both of these knives, I can feel the difference. Oops, hit the camera. I can feel the difference when I'm trying to push down, and I can locate the boye dent and get the optimal place to press down on. And it also just feels a little more comfortable when you're pressing down. So that was the purpose of the boye dent, and it's been on Spyderco's pretty much since 2004. Now this particular one in Os 8 again, always showing the wrong side, in Os 8 stainless, was made in 2004 or 2005, and I know that because in 2006 they added the little bug that you see on the knife currently. See the little bug there? This is one of the most recent ones, but you'll see that on a lot of them beginning in 2006. That's when the little Spyderco bug, little stamping next to the hole shows up. Now all of these knives have an 11 millimeter hole on the knives. Now these two are both first generation, and as you can see in the you might be able to see there, if not I will do it. You'll see where it says Dragonfly ClipIt, and they have the molded in pocket clip. And also what you'll see on both of these knives is they do not unscrew. They're riveted in place in Siki City, Japan. And the pocket clip here, the molded in pocket clip, was actually one of those innovations by Sal Gessler into his knives. So there you go. Sal Gessler. I'm gonna have to learn how to pronounce his name, right? Anyway, and you notice in this case, you do not have the bidirectional handle. You do have the little squares, but they're not bidirectional. And you see that the Dragonfly is in a circle, it's not in an oval. So now, about 3 years after the introduction of the ones with the black FRN handles, and most of these were with black FRN handles for the longest time, they came out with Spyderco Dragonflies in stainless steel. Now this is the tattoo version of it. This is the C28T. But the very first Dragonfly the very first Dragonfly that was in just stainless steel featured the Gen 1 stainless steel, and it came out around 1997 and was known as the CX05 for a very brief time before it just became the C28. And then shortly after that, the steel was changed to ATS 55, and they used ATS 55 steel in the stainless steel versions of these all the way up until 2008 when they introduced VG10. And by that time, they were known as the C28S. And this particular one, though, like I said, is the C28T. And the first time the Dragonfly tattoo showed up was actually in 2009. And by that time, it would have had the little bug on the blade. But it was not have Sal Gessler's initials on the backside. This is a newer version of it. The earlier ones did not have Sal's initials on the backside of it. This particular one came out in 2021. So these productions have changed over the time. So if you see one that does not have his initials on it, that would be an earlier one. I don't know how many times the tattoo has been released. It doesn't come out every year, but it does come out frequently. It is still in production. It's listed as a regular production knife. Now, the second generation knives actually did not show up until 2010. So, like I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but this is actually still a first generation Dragonfly. It is not a second generation style Dragonfly. And the stainless steel knives all had the clip here. I think the only other first generation Dragonfly that does not have the molded on clip, or the integral pocket clip, I think is what they like to call it. I think the only other first generation Dragonfly that uses a stainless steel screwed in pocket clip is the one that was in carbon fiber, the C28CF. I believe it has a steel clip on it. But otherwise, the stainless steel ones are still around, and I believe the stainless steel Dragonflies are the only first generation Dragonflies that are still in production. Now, after 2010, like I said, they jumped over to the second generation, and as you can see, it has the bidirectional handles. If you can look there closely, you might be able to tell, see how they bump out on either end. And so everything kind of circles the center here, which now you have the oval Spyderco Dragonfly as opposed to the round Dragonfly ClipIt and you notice these are just straight up and down, and they're flat. And obviously the back side matches the front side. So now both sides of the knife are the same, and you have the wire clip, which is reversible. So you can put it on either side. So it's left, right, tip up, carry, versus this one, which is just right, tip up, carry with the integral pocket clip. And the stainless steel knives also do not have a reversible pocket clip. So the second generation knives have a two-way pocket clip for tip up carry. This particular one, which came out in 2012, is the C28BK and as I mentioned, it's from 2012, and it is using the H1 steel. Now I will go into more detail in another video about the H1 steel, but it differs from earlier Spydercos here, because if you notice, this has a hollow grind, and it also has a serrated edge. Now this also came with a fine edge, but now you have a hollow ground H1 blade, and that's because, well, I won't go into great details there, but as you can see here, the earlier ones had a full flat grind. Most other Dragonflies continue to have a full flat grind. We'll talk more about H1 steel in a future video. Now, another Spyderco that came out in 2012 is the Little Wood Kit. Now, I haven't built the wood kit yet, but I do plan on building it, but I want to do a few things with it before I do that. The main thing I want to do is use this as a template, so I can actually make a knife out of an ABS plastic and a few other things. Try and make a metal spring and back spring to this thing, and but with this I'll be able to make a template out of it. And also, when I build this, I want to be able to, I'm going to paint it up first off. So we'll see how that all comes out. And I might even actually try and sand down the wood a little bit on both sides to try and give the wood blade a bit of an edge. So I want to do a little bit with this when I do it, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But this actually did come out in 2012 and is readily available still today. It is one of those things that is still in production. And you see, it is made in the USA. I think that's the only Spyderco Dragonfly that's made in the USA. And that brings us to, at least within me, the one that started this madness of collecting Dragonflies, and that is the one in the Zomei green or Zomei green. I've seen it pronounced both ways. This is one that came out, well, before 2019, because I bought it in 2019. Which was the 25th anniversary of Spyderco. But the knife itself was first introduced in June of 2017. And it's the one in the Zomei green. And you see there, it's in VG10 steel. And other things that you can see on here is, I didn't show it before, but if you notice, now you have jmping on the back side there, and jmping on the back of the blade. So that is another sign that you're dealing with a Dragonfly 2 as opposed to the Dragonfly 1, or we can just call it the Dragonfly. Otherwise, these two knives are actually this knife is also like a millimeter or 2 millimeters longer. You don't notice it right away, but if you hold them side by side here, you see it is actually just ever so slightly longer. And when you open up the blades, you get an extra 2 millimeters or so out of it. So I think one of them comes in right at, I'll have to, what is it? Let me see my notes here. Okay, I found it. Basically, up until 2000, so from 1997 to 2000, The overall length was 137 millimeters with a blade length of 54 millimeters. But since 2001, the overall length has been 138 millimeters with a blade length of 58 millimeters. Don't ask me how they worked it out or anything like that. The length of the edge of the blade has remained constant at 48 millimeters, and the thickness of the blade has also remained constant at 2.5 millimeters. So the knife has grown ever so slightly, but for the most part, size-wise, it's only 1 millimeter longer, even though the blade does seem to be a little longer, and the handle is just a little bit longer too. So that's the big differences between first generation, second generation. And like I said, this one came out in, well, what did I say? September or no, June, I believe. June of 2017. And that brings us to the next one. And that is the H1, the H1 with a Hawkbill blade. And the number for the one with the Hawkbill blade, oh man, it goes on forever. Yeah, what can I tell you? My notes were organized, but the way I was going to do this video was not organized. The number for the one with the Hawkbill blade, and this is, the color is Mariner Yellow, is C28BK HB. The HB stands for Hawkbill, and this came out in September 2017, so just 3 months after the Zomei green came out. And I forgot to mention it, but the Zomei green is C28, Z as in zebra, C28ZFPGR2. So long numbers. Now this one is a little bit of a departure. I will go into more detail on this one later too. And you notice the grind is definitely different on both sides here. You got the Sal Glesser initials on the back because it's newer than this one, because of despite when it came out, this is one that I just recently picked up. So this is actually like I said, it's still a current production knife. So even though it came out in 2017, I have a feeling this is a newer one that's been made, because also if you notice, all of the fittings are different. It's all blacked out and everything, as opposed to all shiny stainless steel. So I don't know if they're going in that direction with a lot of things, but they have with the Assault 2 here and the H1. And I will, I'm going to actually do a little bit of a review on both of these knives, and also talk about the values of H1 stainless versus VG10 stainless in a future video. So I'm not going to go into more details than that right now with that one. And that brings us to actually the last one I purchased, and I will be doing a longer video on this one. And what this is a special factory offering through Cutlery Shop. It's the C28PGITD2, which stands for glows in the dark, because this is a Spyderco Dragonfly that glows in the dark. And you see it's a relatively new knife. I bought it in 2021, so I don't know how long Cutlery Shop has been selling them, but I do know I see them on the aftermarket going for ridiculous prices, and you can get it at the regular price of right around $84 or so at Cutlery Shop. So if you're into the whole glow-in-the-dark thing like I am, that's the place to go to. Otherwise, it's your basic Dragonfly. The only difference is it glows in the dark. And I will do a video on this and how well it glows in the dark in a future video too. But that so far is my collection of Dragonflies. I will go into more details on the differences between these two knives in the near future. And I definitely want to go over the difference between G10 and H1. I'm sorry, VG10 and H1 in the near future too. But hopefully that will help out a little bit. But if you're looking for a good resource on how to date when your Dragonfly came out, the Spidey Wiki online is a really good place, at least for Dragonflies. Their information on other knives is a little more scarce, but because of the popularity of Dragonflies, they've got quite a bit of information on that. And with that said, I guess I'll do a little bit of a slideshow and then move on. I think I've talked enough about Spyderco today.
Let me take just a second to thank you once again for dropping by and spending a few minutes here at Knife Chats with the Bias. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate any comments that you leave. So please remember to give me that thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode is up and running. Thanks again for dropping by. Really do appreciate your time here.